This is Monica from RDA Media. We've been getting a lot of people reaching out to us regarding whether they can legally refuse to get a PCR test. With crossing borders and coming in from international places, everyone's being asked to get PCR tests. So, can you refuse to get one? Is it worth it? What will happen if you do? Well, I met a woman called Megan who happened to be in the wrong gym on the wrong day in New South Wales. You are a criminal on the run, lady.
I think I
Far out. 3 police stations and the three.
Yeah, I know. 3 police stations.
And the director of New South Wales Health. You probably never been so important in your life.
I seriously haven't been.
Wow.
Then I can write out a public health order which will be served by the police.
I actually feel like I'm just in a crazy drama, comedy skit.
She has just finished her 14-day isolation and she decided not to get a test. And she wanted to share her story with us. Here it is. I think your story is really important right now because with borders closing, people are really unsure if they can say no to testing. So tell me what it's been like to be harassed by the New South Wales Health and police. How has that been?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Look, I didn't feel the need to get tested because I thought, well, look, I'll just do the quarantine period. And because I was feeling healthy, as I always do, I can't remember the last time I actually went to the doctor, let alone had the flu. I just decided, look, I'll just wait out the 14 days and we'll see how we go. But what actually happened was I was being notified by New South Wales Health to call them. And it was over the Christmas period and I had my phone pretty much switched off because I finished up work. It's been a hell of a year, as we all know. And I just wanted to literally just stop work calls, everything, and just, take some time out for myself and regroup with all the madness that was going on the Northern Beaches. So I didn't realise I had a whole bunch of calls from them. I proceeded to get another call from the police after that.
From the police. So
yeah,
that must have been a bit of a shock for you, or?
Yeah, it was, because I was like, well, what's going on now? And then when I spoke to that police officer, he was a little aggressive because what actually is happening is that New South Wales Health isn't really communicating that well with the police. So that means that I think when they hadn't been able to reach me, as in New South Wales Health, then I was put on a list, right, for the police to follow up.
So, Megan, you quarantined for 14 days. You didn't. You've got no symptoms.
No symptoms.
So, I guess you probably thought it would all be over, but it's not, is it?
No, because they do an exit sort of interview with you at the end of your quarantine period, and of course they advise that you take a test. And I just thought, well, if you're doing the 14 days, because I'm hearing and I know people that have actually tested, they're negative, and yet they're still being told to quarantine 14 days. So what's the point of taking a test? You still have to quarantine despite a negative test result.
Yes.
What I don't understand is why do you still need to quarantine? Now, their argument is that we are asymptomatic, healthy, but infectious. So at the end of the 14 days, when I get the exit phone call, which is what happens with New South Wales Health after you do a series of, like a survey every morning, right? Which is basically, do you display any symptoms? No. Do you have a fever? No. Do you have enough food to go by? Yes. And then you literally submit it and it goes. Okay, so I thought that was it. But no, you get this exit phone call, right? So I got an exit phone call. And this particular lady started off fairly pleasant and then, of course, wanted me to get a test. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm fine. 14 days, still no symptoms. I'm out of quarantine. Well, of course, started the spiel around, it is recommended. I said, no, I understand it's recommended, but I'm choosing not to do that because, I'm out now, I'm finished. Anyway, she was quite insistent, and I said, well, to the point where she said, how about if I help, would it be helpful if I sent somebody around to your home to test you. I was like, that wouldn't be helpful because I'm choosing not to do it. And she said, right. And then she sort of paused and she took another stance then. She said, look, I understand you're getting your daughter back in a couple of days. I was like, right. She said, so look at the implications with you seeing her without getting a test.
She, obviously doing her job, wants to know why you don't want to get tested, etc. She probably hasn't come across many people saying no, obviously. So for the people out there that are wondering, why don't you just get tested?
Why I wasn't personally wanting to get tested?
Yeah.
Well, I know that the PCR tests are, there's problems with them. And I understand that, the virus itself has never, ever been isolated. Okay, so what those tests are actually throwing, none of us know. And I personally believe that that test is bogus. So after I got off the call from her, and I was quite insistent that I would not be taking the test, and that, I felt she was quite threatening around throwing my daughter into the conversation, which I didn't take kindly to, and I said I'd be speaking to my lawyer about that. And then I ended up getting a text message from a mobile phone number from a doctor staff from New South Wales Health.
I have reason to believe that you've been exposed to someone you've been exposed to a case, and you're a contact, and that you may be still incubating the disease or be asymptomatic with the disease and spreading it to others, then I can write out a public health order which will be served by the police.
It's pretty intimidating, isn't it, really? I mean, this is intimidation.
It's not the way I like to deal with things.
I'm a healthy woman. I look after myself. I eat well. And I'm now being threatened by you that if I don't... No, you are. You're threatening me. That's what you do. No, you are. You're going to write a letter because I don't want to get a test. I don't want to get a test, Dr. Stuff.
And what things have you said to the police and New South Wales Health, for example, quoting acts or laws that have made you feel the most empowered during this process?
Yeah, well, thank God for Serene and you, Sven Tafar. Well, I use that Biosecurities Act because...
Sorry, can you say that again? You use what?
The Biosecurity Act 2015.
Perfect.
And Serene's done a fantastic video on that.
Yeah.
And it's on her page. And what I took from that video was that there is I guess it's a clause, is it? Yeah. And one of those clauses is that if you do not display any symptoms, then you have every right to deny a test.
Megan, thanks so much for sharing your story with us, and I will follow up with you to see if it gets any worse. I've seen all the screenshots and all the messages, and it doesn't look like Dr. Staff is going to stop calling and messaging you, so we'll see how that goes. It's obviously not my place to advise anyone what to do when it comes to PCR tests, whether you're crossing the border or coming in from overseas. It's obviously your choice. That's what we're fighting for, choice here. But what I can tell you is that even the WHO have published an article saying that they produce false positives all the time. And you must also keep in mind that all of the restrictions and lockdowns and things that we've had to go through are based on data from these PCR tests. No one should judge you. I won't judge you if you get a PCR test to make things easier. That's your choice. Another thing I find interesting about Megan's story is the resources that are spent in following her up, like she literally is a criminal on the run. All those missed phone calls, all those text messages, that's time paid for by us. I find it very interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. And if more of us say no to PCR tests, I'm not sure they'll have the resources to follow all of us up like that. If you do decide to refuse to get a PCR test and you have a similar story or something different, get in touch with me and I will help you as much as I can. Till next time, have a great evening.